Good evening and welcome to CellarPass TV. We are live coming to you from our studio in Seattle area. I'm the Vineyard Vixen and I'm really excited to talk cars and some really great wine with you tonight. One thing I really love is cars. I like to go fast, turns out. And we don't really talk about that very much. So we thought, why not? We have some really amazing contacts and friends in the industry. We have author Owen Edwards and designer Richard Barron with us tonight. You may not know their names, but I guarantee you know their work. So we're really, really stoked to hear their stories, learn about what they've done in the industry and publishing and design, and of course, sample some of their favorite wines with you tonight. So let's welcome Owen and Richard.
Howdy.
Hi, guys. Hi, welcome. Cheers. Clink, 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 clink.
Cheers.
Yeah, Owen's wine pick is the first up. It is a white, and we will definitely be sipping along that. Owen Edwards is author and photographer and writer and oh my, adventurer extraordinaire. And Richard is been in photography and design for like since you were in diapers, I think, and and has had your opportunity to photograph and probably even drive many of our dream exotic cars in your lifetime. And so let's start with Owen, since to me he's up top and I can see him there. Owen, why don't you introduce yourself and share just kind of a quick elevator pitch of what you've done.
Oh, an elevator pitch. I've tried those before. They never work.
Yeah, I know.
I got a lot of sun today. I can see that for the first time. It's 80 here in Sonoma, so
my goodness,
it's we're not having a spring this year.
It's winter.
We're right into fire season.
Oh, I don't want to hear that.
No, I don't either.
That's terrible.
Anyway, I'm a long-time editor and author and columnist. I did, among other things, the car and motorcycle columns for GQ for many years, and also a column there on office politics. Excellent. And I wrote a column in the Smithsonian for about a dozen years called The Object at Hand, which was about things that Smithsonian had in their collection. And I've been the managing editor of Cosmopolitan Magazine and the executive editor of American Photographer and the founding editor of Parenting Magazine. So I've been around quite a lot. I worked for CBS TV in the very early part of my career. And then very nicely, they fired me and gave me almost a year's severance, and I went off to Greece and lived for 7 years on a small island.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, that was nice. And this is what I looked like on that island.
Wow, look at you, hot stuff.
Yeah, back then.
Back then.
Years ago.
That's incredible. So what spurred the idea to move to Greece?
Well, I wanted to write the great American novel, and I did write a novel, neither great, but American. It was American. And I didn't speak any Greek, but I absorbed it by osmosis when I was there. The first few days I was there, I thought every building was a fraternity house.
I can understand the confusion.
Yeah.
That's funny. What was some of your highlights of living in the Greek Isles?
Well, this little book I wrote is about that horse I bought at a racetrack in Athens, and then took it to the island on a couple of small boats through one major storm.
Oh man!
And I got there alive, and so did the horse. But at some point or another, the boat we were on was tipped over like that, and the horse had racing shoes on, and it was sliding all over the deck. And so the son of the captain of the little boat, it was a kaiki, he was behind the horse with his hands on the butt, holding it like that, and I was up front holding on to the bridle,
Oh man.
And I thought to myself, if this horse goes over, I have to go over too. I'm morally bound to die with this horse.
The horse goes, I goes.
And I don't know. I luckily I didn't have to test the level of my morality, but it was pretty exciting.
Excellent. That is an amazing story. Richard, do you want to follow that one?
Not quite. Not quite. No, that's amazing. I won't go back to the diaper stage, but I started my art direction career with magazines at Road and Track, and I worked for Road and Track for 32 years in different capacities in the art department, art director, and I started as an assistant art director. I had submitted some photos for the Long Beach Grand Prix to the art director, and they actually selected it to run as a lead to that race. And that kind of gave me the inroad to get an interview. And I always kind of wanted to work at Road and Track. It was just, I read it since I was a kid. I was into cars. And it just seemed like everyone who worked at Road and Track worked there forever and never left. So I figured somebody would probably have to die before I got a job there or had an opportunity. As it turns out, one of the art directors, one of the ladies who worked in the art department, ended up getting married and moving away, and that was my opportunity, and that was the start of a wonderful career. It's just a great place. You know, we did a lot of stories all over the world. We designed a lot of magazines, some books along the way there. And I also did some magazines for other manufacturers, for Ferrari and whatnot. So Road and Track was a great career, did a lot of wonderful things there. And about 8 years ago, the magazine moved back to Michigan, and they left. Our offices were in Newport Beach. And at that point, left the magazine and we moved up to the Northwest, which is where we are now. And I freelance now, and I do a Porsche Club magazine called Porsche Panorama, and I also do book designs. So I've done probably about 10 or 12 books, usually specialized, all car books, usually specializing with Porsche. And that's kind of what I do now. Excellent.
And you're still working with the magazine Panorama, right?
I do Panorama every month.
Every month.
And I'm in the process of finishing 2 very, very big book projects right now that are pretty massive projects. One is a history of Brumos racing, and the other one is a book about Japanese collector cars. And they're multi-volume books.
Wow.
And they'll be out this spring.
Excellent. Well, congratulations. I definitely want to bring Chris Sawyer in. Hey, Chris.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome.
I
Chris,
made it. I don't want to say I drove fast, but I drove fast to make it here from Oregon to make it on time. So might be a land speed record. I do not know. We'll have to measure it later. But I am here for you.
So Chris is fresh from being up in Oregon and also right on the tails of the San Francisco Chronicle wine competition. So he is in judging season and then had to zoom down from Oregon today to join us. So thank you for doing that.
You got it.
Yeah.
Very excited about tonight's show and getting to know Owen and Richard a little bit better. They have great stories behind them and they like wine. So
yes,
sounds like a great thing to talk about tonight.
These are some of our favorite things. Owen, so we've talked kind of like a little bit of your journalistic history, but that doesn't really explain why we picked you. When did you really get into motorcycles and motorsports?
Well, I had my first motorcycle when I was in the Marine Corps, which is the late 50s. And somebody sold it to me. It was an old Triumph. Somebody sold it to me for about $100 when he was getting out. And as an old Triumph, it was a wreck. And somehow I'm still here to tell this story, but stuff was always falling off it. I was stationed at the low end of South Carolina, and I had some fraternity brothers in Savannah, and so I used to go down there to parties all the time. And riding back on that Triumph in the middle of the night, everything would just, the headlight would go out.
Oh my gosh.
This had something, I mean, it was a lighting, an electrical system called Lucas, which was notoriously terrible. And somebody said that Lucas had once said, "The gentlemen don't drive at night." So, yeah, he didn't care about if it worked all the time, you know.
Oh, I see.
But anyway, I've been riding motorcycles ever since. Not in the years that I was in Greece. That's why I got a horse. I needed something like that.
Right, horsepower or horsepower. Yeah. Right.
And I still have 3 motorbikes in the garage. And until about 4 years ago, I was still going out on the racetrack and trying to pretend that I was a racer.
Well, you pull it off very well. I don't know if we have the photo readily available, but you sent just the most amazing photo of you zooming around full tilt on your bike, leather, race gear. I mean, you definitely look the part. So I do remember the first time I ever met you, my husband and I think we were at Model Bakery in St. Helena. And we see this, bike, racer pull up. We're like, wow, that's pretty rockin' bike, and get up and, off pops, your helmet. And we're like, whoa, that's not a spring chicken. And then John's like, wait, that I know that guy. That's Owen. and that is when we first, well, at least I first met Owen. And yeah, I'm talking like that was impressive. And I'm like, wow, I hope I am that spry and adventurous when I'm at your age, because that's very cool.
Well, I loved writing about cars and bikes for GQ because I got to drive everything and ride everything new that came out. As a matter of fact, I spent a lot of time in Porsches. I never was able to own one, but I drove a lot of them, and
they're very nice.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a fan.
You've got one.
I'll take one if you got one. Yeah,
we're passing around samples. Owen mentioned earlier that you just ask for samples when you're a journalist. So I think we need to become automotive journalists.
Yeah. Yes. I used to, when I lived in San Francisco, I lived in a very short little street near Diamond Heights. And when I was writing about cars, every week I'd have another, everything from Bentleys to Porsches to Ferraris. And I parked in front of the house. And I just about had to explain to all the neighbors that I was not a drug dealer. These were legitimate. I had them for a week at a time. And
these were my work projects.
And then another one would come. Yeah.
That's a great thing about being an automotive journalist is you get a company gas card, you have somebody else's car, and you get to drive all the best cars that are out there. So
it sounds dreamy, actually. I like it. What was your most memorable borrow or research that you got to bring home?
Well, I almost died driving a Bentley. Because when I got the Bentley, I thought I really can't park this in my neighborhood now. That's just too tacky. It was a nice working class neighborhood. And
there were respectable people.
We decided that we would go down to Carmel, where everybody's got a Bentley, so it wouldn't be so obvious. And I drove down there, and we met a couple of friends at a then new restaurant that had just opened up in the hills. And I on the way down from San Francisco, we never stopped to eat because I didn't want to pull into a McDonald's in a Bentley. Again, so worried about being really tacky.
I'd pay you $50 to do it.
So I hadn't eaten all day, and then I had a martini, and then half a bottle of wine, and ate a lot of food, and Regina my wife is named Regina. She turned to me at some point and said, "Owen, you're really looking very pale." And I said, "Yeah, I don't feel that great actually." So I said, I better go and go into the men's room. So I did, and I thought I might be nauseated, but it turned out that I wasn't. I won't give you too much information.
We'll leave it at that.
So I started to leave, and the next thing I know, I wake up. I'm lying on the floor, and I'm lying in a pool of my blood.
Oh man!
And then I was kind of momentarily semi-paralyzed, and I looked at the wall, and the urinal had been broken off the wall by the back of my head.
Oh, jeez.
And well, they don't make them like they used to, I can tell you.
Please tell me you're also James Bond.
Well, the thing was that I felt that I couldn't get in the Bentley because I didn't want to bleed on it because it was a borrowed Bentley.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
So we had to wait for the EMTs to come, and they couldn't find the place because it was new and wasn't on their maps. Finally, they got me to the hospital, and I spent a night in the hospital. And our friends that we'd been visiting, the wife jumped into the Bentley and said, "This is great. I've been waiting for this." So she spent the day driving my borrowed Bentley. And then, when I was sufficiently recovered and had not bled to death, we got back in the Bentley and went to San Francisco. But I thought, if I had died because of this Bentley, that wouldn't have been nice.
No, would not have been a good way to end that story at all. And I'm really sorry to hear that. Like, that shows the importance of eating plenty when you're going to be imbibing. That's really, really important. And also to have a designated driver.
And we're just glad you're here to tell the story.
Yes, to tell the tale.
This is a pretty epic story.
Yeah, it's gripping. I really think he's secretly James Bond and he was duking it out in the men's room, but that's my theory.
By the way, when I was thinking about my life in wine, I went to the University of Virginia, so I basically drank nothing but bourbon for quite a long time. And in those days, nobody drank wine in Virginia. Now there are vineyards there, but back in the day. And then
I'm pretty sure there were vineyards even then, because I think, was it Jefferson started the
That's true, yeah. But
a little bit of history.
Then I went in the Marine Corps, and I don't believe I ever saw a Marine drink wine.
Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Maybe they probably do now.
Oh, I'm sure of it now. Well, speaking of wine, tell us a little bit about your pick. So for tonight's show, we really wanted each of us to pick a wine that means something to each one of us. And tonight's wine, a pick of Owen's, is the 3 Pears Pinot Grigio, which is actually really delightful.
Yeah, the reason I've been drinking this for years, and it's a vineyard just over the ridge from me in Oakville, and I like a fairly simple wine. When somebody says that they love complex wines, that's wasted on me. I like a nice, refreshing wine that's wonderful with food, and this is great for that. I spent 7 years in Greece, so I drank a lot of Retsina. And as anybody who's ever drunk Retsina knows, this is not the fine wine that one might dream of. But if you get it really, really, really cold, it's okay.
There's a tasting tip. Chris, put that in your next review.
I will.
Really, really cold.
Really.
Every now and then I want to buy a bottle just for nostalgia's sake, but you can't buy it around here.
Oh.
Is it really made from trees, Owen?
I'm sorry?
Is it really made from trees?
No, but the Greeks, Greece doesn't have a lot of oak trees. So they make their barrels out of pine trees.
Right.
And it's the pine. The pine gives it that flavor, that
resin
flavor.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like resin almost.
Yeah, it's a resin. Yeah, that comes in. They don't add the resin.
It's just there. It's a
but
natural
it's
flavoring.
the way, you know, a French wine will be in an oak barrel,
Right.
and, you know, it gives it a certain excellent taste. But pine barrels, it's a little like drinking chewing gum.
I'm really digging the wine reviews. I know our viewers are too. They're like, okay, don't drink that wine. But it sounds like an interesting experience. And as we all know, pretty much with wine, it's about the experience and the time and the place. So it is something that clearly is memorable and has probably a very special place in your heart of those 7 years being on the island. So what made you, I mean, I know this is your simple wine. What do you like about this particular wine?
Well, I think it's clarity and it's adaptability. I mean, it really goes with, maybe not with steak or lamb, but it goes well with pasta and seafood and
salt and pepper kettle chips.
Yeah. I just put them there for the glamour.
It does. It definitely seems like it's a very it's an easy drinking wine. This is actually a Trinchero brand, and which is one of our clients. And the sister to this particular wine is a Pomelo, which many of us have seen World Market and Whole Foods, and pretty much most of our major grocery stores. But the little known secret about Pomelo is, and this wine, this is a Pinot Grigio, and it's amazing. I haven't had this one before, but I've had the Pomelo lots of times. And in the wine industry, the Pomelo is the winemaker's dirty little secret, so we call it, for the Sauv Blanc that most of us are all drinking at home. Because, trust me, there's a lot of great Sauv Blancs out there at very beautiful price points. But these wines come in like at sub $10, and they're outstanding. So these are perfect to stock up on. I like it because it has a screw cap, and I am very fond of screw caps. Anything that is in the white rosé category that has a screw cap is usually the first thing I will buy, because I'm taking it to the pool, to the beach, to the boat, anything that I'm probably not going to be toting along a lot of tools. So simplicity is key. So that goes with it. But this is such a delight. And I loved the label. It's got some beautiful colors. It's going to look great on your table, and definitely not a wine to even be ashamed of. Chris, what do you think about this one?
Well, I love it, and I think really one thing that is a good educational thing to put out here right now is that Pinot Grigio and Pinot Gris, they're the same grape. And they're actually both white mutation, or it is a white mutation of Pinot Noir, believe it or not. So just like Pinot Blanc is a white mutation of Pinot Noir too. So you have some things going on inside this glass, and it's definitely the Italian style. So we're going to go back to Italian style in a few minutes when we get into definitely Richard's favorite and why we're going to talk about that. But I wanted to bring like a kind of complimentary thing to Owen, and that was a rosé, because heck, we've had 3 shows in a row with rosé. Let's keep it going.
Oh yeah, rosé all day.
And the thing is that I think where Owen's got a really great point here is that's a very delicious style of wine, and it's refreshing. You said it, Owen. You said it's refreshing, and you like it, and it's great with the kind of food we've gotten into, which is called fresh food. Not the stuff. Remember TV dinners and everything, you guys? That doesn't exist like we used to have them in the old days. This is freshness, and I feel that like that wine has a lot of freshness in it. And so I brought a good example here that kind of ties in with a few things, and that's the Lassiter family.
Oh, I love that one.
Just because, Owen, you live in Sonoma. Yeah. John Lassiter lives in Sonoma, and he also made a story.
He owns half of Sonoma.
He owns half of Sonoma.
And he made a little movie that I think Richard would like, and it's called Cars. And it was a great movie, and it's such a wonderful thing. But John and Nancy Lassiter love rosé, and before John started Pixar with Stephen Jobs. And all of that, he didn't have that much money, and him and Nancy, when they went to France, they went to the nice villages, and especially Provence, because they could afford those wines. So that is the kind of thing that we're talking about, these young, refreshing wines that are great for the spring and summer times. And I think that's why Owen's wine really brings it home. And I think that, you know, the Lassiter Rosé, which is amazing. It means Anjouis, which means joy.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool. And, you know, there's another one too that I have here. That's the Lassiter Chemin de Fer, which is kind of like where we got, actually, oh yeah, that's the angle.
Can see it.
Where we got with a few things about Sonoma Valley, which is, there used to be a train that used to go down the center of Sonoma Valley. But what this means, chemin de fer, is it means the iron horse. And so the French were kind of pissed when the horses were replaced by these things called trains. And now we moved on and we have cars. So once again, we get into this. So it all connects together. It's fantastic.
Well, and then fun, you know, tying all of this in, the chemin de fer mean iron horse. And of course, you know, Joy Sterling's winery, Iron Horse, being named after the trains that came through the area. So
and what about the book that, you know, Owen wrote? Look at him. He's on a horse.
Exactly.
You know?
So it's weird how these things come together. Lassiter is a delight to visit. If you have not, I highly recommend it. It is on CellarPass. So you can go to CellarPass.com and book your experience at Lassiter. And I highly recommend that anybody goes. It's just such a beautiful property. It's tucked in the backside in Glen Ellen. And it takes you a million miles away. And it's a really great place to spend an afternoon.
I remember when he was building that place.
Oh, it's great.
Down that little windy road that goes by his place in Glen Ellen. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
About 100 acres overall. And this does have a little bit more symbolism in it too, that other than just, you know, the chemin de fer, he does have the old Disney train on the property.
Oh, does
so
he?
There is a track there, and it does go around it. And, you know, it's just kind of part of his private part of the estate. But there's about 40 acres that are planted. You know, he makes amazing wines. They're all on the estate now, and they have another piece of property that's up above Kenwood. Well, I mean, technically it's above Kenwood, but it's part of the Moon Mountain District, which is up on the mountain called Trinity Ridge. And I'll tell you, one for you, Owen. If you go into Glen Ellen Star, they've got a couple of the wines on the list, and they were just there, and I met up with them at Lassiter Winery, and we had a great time. They love those wines, and it's so fun, and that food is so good at Glen Ellen Star.
Yeah, it is good. I like that place.
Absolutely. All right. So Owen, before we move on to Richard here, what's like your favorite road or back road to cruise when you're on your bike and you're going through wine country?
Well, when I need a short, terrifying ride, I go up Trinity Road down Oakville Grade, which is the ridge in the Mayacamas Mountains, just between Sonoma and Glen Ellen and Napa Valley. And it's a road that
it's not for the faint of heart.
They don't. It would be a great road if they fix it ever, but they fix it here and there, so suddenly you can go very fast, and then the next thing you know, they're 6-inch deep potholes, and you can't lean over at all.
Oh,
but I think my favorite ride is from here to straight out the Bodega Road all the way to the coast, and then down one, which is in great shape, down to Point Reyes Station, and a coffee there, and then heading back on the Point Reyes Road. And you know, if you go during the week, there aren't that many police, and I've had a few tickets there. But
these are good things. These are very good things. I love
it down pat, don't you?
He's like, yeah, I know. On Tuesdays we're good. That's awesome. All right, Richard. So one thing you shared with us previously is about your road and track days and the level of comfort that your team would travel in. So could you tell us a little bit about what made that so special and how you got to picking your wine pick for the night?
Sure. Well, you know, primarily when we test cars all over the world, and not just in California where we were based, but we would test literally all over the world. And primarily, obviously, we would choose the great roads to travel on, where we could evaluate the cars really well. But a couple of the guys that I work with, the editor and one of the other writers and photographers, I had the good fortune of traveling with them, and they had kind of a mantra that when you're on the road, you don't want to have any bad meals. And they would plan trips so that we would end up at a destination, a great road, but we would end up at a destination that had a really wonderful restaurant to have a really wonderful meal, which is a great reward at the end of the day. So one of the places that we would travel in occasionally would be Italy, and Tuscany especially. And the editors that I traveled with, I kind of learned from them, because they would travel with a Michelin guide, and they would open the Michelin guide and find a really wonderful restaurant. And then we'd find roads that went to that restaurant, and that restaurant would be in the vicinity of where we'd end up that night. So it was a great way to travel, and ate a lot of really good meals and drank a lot of good wine along the way. And one trip that was very memorable in Tuscany, which is the home to a lot of stuff. Of course, Italy has amazing cars, amazing roads, and the Mille Miglia used to run through Tuscany. Part of it ran through Tuscany. So one of the places that we ended up at was a vineyard. It was the Bonfi Vineyard, and one of the wines that they had there was Brunello di Montalcino, and we had this wonderful, intense, flavorful, rich Italian wine. And one of the other things that region is famous for is Parmesan Reggiano, and the pair of those two together was just amazing. I mean, the two just go together. It's so natural. I mean, they're both very rich and full, but they're just such a wonderful pairing. So there you go.
To give everyone a look at the Banfi Castle, this is what it looks like. It's pretty awesome. And what he's talking about is Montalcino, which was the old Bank of Italy. To be really honest, it was a fortress that was impenetrable. And there are vineyards on each side of it. So it's surrounded by vineyards, but it has a wall that's so tall that it was impenetrable. So that a lot of the Tuscan money was stored there. But this castle is where Banfi is, and it's an amazing place. I've been there a number of times. And actually, this is a book about the pursuit of excellence that was written by the winemaker who passed away fairly recently, a dear friend of mine. And what he really was about was telling people how the wines were made, and that was with the Sangiovese grape and the different clones of the Sangiovese grape. So it's an amazing place, and it's better than it even looks in that picture. Believe me, and I know that Richard knows that. Especially when you got a hot car that you're driving up to it in. Yeah.
It really is. I mean, Tuscany is just such a wonderful place. Such a wonderful place to travel to, and that's it's kind of as good as it gets. They have a wonderful restaurant there.
Just one?
They do. Well, at Banfi, they do have a wonderful restaurant. Just at Banfi. Montalcino has a lot of restaurants. Believe me, they do. For a small place. My favorite, too, is just the farmer's market there. And I remember one time we went there, and there's like a what would be a taco truck in our times, but it had a whole pig on it. On this spit, and so you just ask for a sandwich, and they put the bread underneath it and just start it off, put the a little bit of olive oil and salt and pepper and a little bit of vinegar and some greens, and then just gave it to you. It was like wow. It was delicious.
That's awesome. Wow, I love that. Well, I was not so familiar. Oh, go ahead, Owen.
Oh, I just wanted to mention to Richard, you had the great car and the great restaurant, and then that great thing called an expense account.
Yes. Oh, that's the magic ticket.
You got it.
That's funny. Yes, all great things come from expense accounts. That is wonderful. I was really excited about Richard's pick because I actually didn't know anything about the Montalcinos. And I didn't even know it was a Sangiovese until I started looking it up and trying to understand what I was looking for, which sent me on a little research trip. So I went to our local market and our local little wine shop and started buying up whatever Montalcinos they had, mostly in search of the Bonfi, which I did finally acquire, as you can tell. And this isn't a Sangiovese I've ever had. I mean, this blew my mind, and it is insanely delicious. Not just this particular one, but so far what I have done in my research over the weekend, almost all of them. So what really makes this region so special, Chris?
It's just, I mean, to be really honest, it looks like Sonoma County, but it has a mountain right in the middle of it. I mean, it's just, it's very dreamy. When you have sips of wine there and you're looking out at the tundra of vineyards and just mountains and olive trees and everything like that, you're up high. And so it's very different than the flatlands or even Chianti area, because Chianti is just kind of, you go up beyond Florence and you go up in the hills and it's good, but this is really dramatic where you're at there in Montalcino. It's its own fortress. It's its own being. And you really feel the history of this area too. And I think that Sangiovese really got put on the map by this particular area. And I brought a little solution here to my problem that I couldn't get my hands on any Bonfi in driving down here. But I did bring one, the one where I stayed last night, the Girodet, and this is an amazing one in Roseburg, Oregon, of all places. He actually Sangiovese. And I will say one thing that he told me last night that is a very, very interesting tie-in to exactly what Richard's talking about. This is on the same parallel in the world, just like Burgundy is lined up with Willamette Valley here, and as far as the globe is concerned, actually this area of Montalcino is completely lined up with Roseburg, Oregon, of all places.
Go figure.
And it just seems to work. He's got a great thing, and it's grown out in the kind of the country. And I walked up on that hill. I kind of felt like I was in Italy this morning.
Oh,
and that was the quote of the week.
Roseburg.
Yes.
Little Tuscany.
Yes. Get it. Yes. Go Oregon. Go Tuscany.
I love it. Go Tuscany. Roseburg, America's Little Tuscany.
Yeah.
If this were the Groucho
their new
Marx show,
tagline.
we'd get a prize now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah,
Should
prize
get a prize.
wine. Yay.
Oh my gosh, it's funny.
Let me, since we have an expert here, I want to ask a question.
Sure.
Last summer we had 4 or 5 periods of several days over 100 degrees.
Yep.
And then, of course, we have now our more or less annual wildfires.
Yeah.
And I wonder what effect is that having on the wine business in this area of Sonoma and Napa Valley?
Great question. The 2020 vintage is a hard one. There will not be that much from the 2020 vintage. The only thing we can compare it to is probably the 2015, because 2015 was really, its biggest problem was the drought. We just didn't have much water, and it was about 40%. I think where you're going to see really good ones is actually the more or less the sparkling wines, because those are the first grapes that are picked.
Yeah.
And they're not really, it's not really about the skins unless you're doing a rosé, but it's still picked so early. It's usually in August when you start picking those. And then the Sauvignon Blancs this year were extremely good. I mean, to be really honest, this was a great vintage in the making, the 2020, and we got super duper screwed by these fires, just to be real candid there. And every winemaker would go, Chris is absolutely right.
Yeah.
But I feel like even in Oregon, when I was there this week, up there in Willamette Valley and down in the lower part and Umpqua, Applegate, and also the amazing area of the Rogue Valley, they had terrible things happen up there too with the fires. It's really sad. But
there was no area spared on the West Coast. I mean, the smoke and the fires came all the way to Washington.
The one area I feel like might be one to look into and to kind of see how they do is actually Paso Robles, and some of these areas are super duper isolated out there.
Right.
That it takes a long time to get down there, and then you're kind of there, but then you think you're really close to Santa Barbara, but you're actually not that close to Santa Barbara. You got a couple more hours to get to Santa Barbara unless you're riding with Owen. You know,
if you're test driving a Ferrari, you'll get there in no time.
Or me today, in that case. But no, I think that it's a hard one, Owen. And to be really honest, I'll go back to a very interesting one that we talked about in context here too. 2017. Okay, first of all, what was the difference? People died in 2017. That was the worst thing about 2017. But if we would not have had the biggest rainfall in California history that year, what would have happened? What would have happened if we didn't have any water to fight these fires with? I don't know. And it's just a great thing that we still have Sonoma Valley is still pretty much intact. I mean, there's those houses up on the hills that did not make it, but it's pretty good. But you know, what if we didn't have any water to fight that? And it would have been terrible. It would have been really terrible. So we got to look at good, positive things too.
Well, we're headed into another tremendous drought right now.
I know.
You know,
so send your bottled water to California. They're going to need it.
Keep stocking up on your wines, you guys. That's our whole point here.
Yeah, buy now and stock up and save it. We need to protect the cellars.
Yeah, I'm doing okay here.
He's doing okay, and it's really no joke. I mean, we joke about it, but it's been a terrible cycle for several years running. And I thought when we, as a lot of people know, our family moved up to Washington, that we were gonna not deal with that, but we get it up here too. And not just the fires don't really come in our area. I mean, we do have a lot of moisture, as they say, but what I did notice is, like, that same year, 17, the fires in British Columbia, which we don't hear about, we did, and it just filled the whole sound because it's like a bowl. And so just the smoke here can be as bad, if not worse. So that was kind of something, just thinking of, weather and, geography that I didn't know, but I definitely know now. One of my best girlfriends and I were actually up in Banff over Labor Day weekend, where we witnessed the beginnings of one of the biggest wildfires they ever saw. And to be honest, we didn't know it was a fire. We thought it was just big thunderhead clouds coming up over the Rockies. And we're like, oh, wow, look at those. But that was the fire plume. And we had no idea how close we were to that fire. But for days upon days, we were pretty much in smoke, still hiking, still doing our thing. We actually had a pretty good time. But what we didn't know then that we would learn just few weeks later was how bad the smoke really is for you, because everybody was masking up with those 17 fires, and California started that trend of masking way before COVID, which came in handy with COVID because I had my masks ready, so that worked out. But you don't want to mess around. So fire season does happen, and you definitely want to take your precautions and wear your mask, keep your masks, because you're going to need them. But it does affect everybody. And there's a lot of great wine countries, up in British Columbia, all these new things that I was exploring, and I'm going, ooh, how is this affecting everything? But you do notice it. It's just, they call our area where you live in the Ring of Fire, and it couldn't be even more true to the fire seasons that we see in the area.
And I would just say this too about this amazing label here too, is that for the Chemin de Fer from the Lassiters is, where the estate is right there, right near Glen Ellen, is it's where the original the railroad station was. The original railroad station for Glen Ellen was on the property, and John had that preserved with a lot of the memorabilia from his films and everything inside of it, and it burned up in the 2017 fire. So it's a really big loss.
Oh,
but
man.
You got to move on. The grapes survive. And you have to go with it.
That's a bummer. Hey, Chris, do you have the cork from the rosé? I love their little insignia that they put on the top of the corks.
Yes, of course. It's right here, and if you can see it there, it might even be better on here.
Oh, the front of the bottle has it too.
Right there. So it's a bee about ready to pollinate that rose, and the amount of berries on here is the number of children that John and Nancy have. Go figure. I don't know why they. I don't know why there's that many grapes. I have no idea.
That's kind of crazy.
Just saying.
It's super,
Just
super
saying.
cute. And that bee, if anybody's a Pixar fan, you know, makes appearances in the early days. So it's very sweet that, you know, they've really tied, you know, kind of everything together. I love it. I think it's a sweet nod without being like too overt that hello, Pixar. And I think they do a very good job at it.
Me too.
All right. So Richard, when you picked your wine from the experience, what is your favorite, what does this transport you to when you're at home? I know you pair, you know, the Parmesan Reggiano, and so this has got to kind of stir up some feelings and memories. Tell us about it.
It does. You know, what evolved from that trip, and with the wine and the cheese, we decided that we started kind of a little bit of a tradition, and it was we bought a wheel of Parmesan Reggiano. Oh. And we decided, well, it's a lot of money, obviously, and
it's a lot of cheese.
It's a lot of cheese. So we got a group of friends together that love wine, love Brunello, and love Parmigiano Reggiano, and been to Italy. So we decided, let's get this small group of friends together, and we'll buy a wheel of cheese. We'll get a bunch of bottles of Brunello, and we're going to have a cheese party. Cut the cheese party, if you will. And we had this wheel of cheese delivered. I had it delivered to the lobby of Road and Track, and I had to fight people off because the lobby kind of filled up with the scent of Parmigiano Reggiano. And we basically had the cheese. We had a nice afternoon in our backyard with a lot of really great friends. And we had our little ceremony where we had the cheese knives. We bought the Parmigiano Reggiano cheese knives, and we split the wheel, and we cut it up, and we divided it up. And this whole process was sitting around an afternoon for a few hours and dividing up this wheel of cheese and drinking great Brunello and just having great conversation. And it was just such a wonderful experience. And it was so great. We did it again and again and again. It took a while to get through all the cheese, but once we got through the cheese and people started, you know, we'd we shrink wrap the cheese, and we would freeze it and stuff. But once we started to use that up over a year, everyone started to say, hey, I think we need to get another wheel of cheese. So we do it again and again and again. And that was fabulous. That was just a wonderful experience. I highly recommend it if you've got a group of friends, and it's so great. And there's nothing better. I have some Parmigiano Reggiano right here. Oh. I'm enjoying with the Brunello, and it just brings back great memories. And it's just a wonderful thing to do if you like food and you like wine.
That sounds like so much fun. What are some of your favorite recipes to make with the Parmigiano Reggiano?
Well, yeah, one of the things that we've started to try to perfect lately is cacio e pepe.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of a challenging thing to do. Evidently, we've seen a few cooking shows with it. And my wife even bought me a special pan for Christmas last year, and trying to get the combination right with Parmigiano Reggiano and I think it's Checo, but there's a combination of those things to get just right. So that's what we're working on now to try to perfect it. The last time we did it was pretty good. It's basically macaroni and cheese.
It's so when you look this up and right now, you know, cacio e pepe is having a moment. I mean, it's all over the magazines. You know, I started picking up and I'm like, wow, what's this? But you're right, it's kind of like macaroni and cheese, but it's not. But it is super simple. I mean, when you break it down, you're talking pasta, cheese, pepper, and that's about it. But one of the secrets is reserving some of that pasta water.
Yes.
So that's going to be key. So if you don't reserve your pasta water, you're never even going to get close to what you're trying to get. But you want that gluten that's in that pasta water to add in it, and that's what gives it that creaminess and also thickens up, makes the sauce. But we were talking the probably like butter noodles on steroids, but the most simple food ever. And I have not yet made it, but I have had some, and I get I get the rage. I get it. It's so dang delicious. So, and I could just imagine how that would pair with the Brunello.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And nothing is more fun than a nice, bowl of pasta, glass of wine, and friends, and just having a very casual, amazing dinner.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
with that, yeah, absolutely, because we like to eat and we like to hang out together, because that's
Yeah.
what we do. But speaking of dinners, so my wine is the Dutton Estate, my father's vineyard Syrah. This particular wine was discovered by my husband, super producer Jonathan, and I on a date night at a restaurant called Bosco's in Calistoga, California. And it was on their list. Had never had it before. We're like, yeah, that sounds good. Bring it up. Blew our minds. I mean, we fell in love instantly with this particular Syrah. Had a wonderful night eating pasta, enjoying some great wines. And had we had the Porsche, we probably would have driven the Porsche that night as well, but we didn't. But we fell in love with this wine. We asked the restaurant if they had any. If memory serves me right, they may or may not have had an extra bottle. I think we did buy it. Cleared them out, and then the first thing when we woke up the next morning, Sunday morning, we were like, looked at each other, we're like, we need to go to Dutton Estate right now. So we made a beeline for the tasting room and bought up the rest of what they had there because it is that good. So so when I was thinking of, wine that kind of takes you to a time and place, that particular night was so special. It was just a wonderful, wonderful fall evening. Just the stage, wine country, perfect. The weather was right. You're just getting that nice kind of crisp fall feeling. Red wines are starting to be like, yeah, let's do this. And just a wonderful conversation and memory. And then to top it off with going to the winery the next day and be like, we have to have this right now, has always been a fond memory. So that's what brought it to me. But it was also the drive over there. So winding through some back roads, getting into the Russian River Valley region of the wineries. And it's just so beautiful. You get kind of that coastal, but not too coastal yet, scenery. And I just remember just taking in that whole afternoon and having an absolute ball. So that's what brought me to this one. And so I called up Dutton Estate and I'm like, hey, can we get a couple of bottles? They're like, how many do you want?
Exactly.
Because this particular vineyard is very near and dear to the Dutton family. It is their father's vineyard. And so this is a super special wine. I know why they put so much time and effort into it. And I am such a fan. And I know, Chris, you are too. So
I am indeed. It's Warren Dutton. I mean, he was one of the legends of Sonoma County that brought, he didn't have a sports car, but he had a D9 tractor that was pretty badass. And he actually took out trees that he loved those trees, but he had a vision to really plant grapevines, and that he really became one of the people like we have down in Sonoma. We have the San Giacomos, and the Duttons are of the north part, the kind of the Sebastopol, Forestville area. And believe me, we have a lot of their wines at our restaurant in Sebastopol, the Gravenstein Grill. Of course we do. They come in all the time. I see that family all the time. They're so wonderful. And I'll tell you why. I know why you love this wine too. And remember, there's a big thing about Syrah. Syrah is one of the only grapes that can grow in hot climates and cool climates. So you think about Cabernet in Napa Valley. Oh, awesome. But would you grow it out where we grow Pinot Noir here in Sonoma County?
No way.
If you want to ripen it every 2 out of 10 years, maybe. But if you just want to make rosé out of it, maybe. But there's nothing really economically feasible about that. Syrah, on the other hand, can grow in Napa Valley, way up in the hills in the hot section, or down in Australia or wherever it wants to. Or you can get it out there near the coast, which is Russian River, and especially kind of some of their holdings are kind of more like Green Valley and almost the Freestone Occidental area, which is a great area to ride to. And that, Owen, out there in that area, which is just a beautiful roadway. So, I mean, it just fits everything. And what I really get out of that wine is aromatics right off the bat. I mean, it's a pretty wine because it has blueberries and it has violets and it has all these kinds of blue fruits. And you're like, oh, why is there boysenberries in here? I don't.
How'd that get in there?
the hot climate ones that smell like you just took this ribeye and threw it on the grill, but then you smelled your hands, and because it just smells steak-like, and everything. That one does not smell like steak. It smells like beautiful, wonderful things and fruit, and like you just went and picked it off the tree, and it's so good. So I'm a big fan of Syrah, obviously, and my heart is in Syrah, and I love going to the Hospice de Rhone thing every year that I can't get enough of it, and it was postponed this year, and I was really sad, but let's not go there. But the thing is, Syrah has done a really great job. The Lassiters do a great job with Syrah. It's a blending thing for them. They have a little bit more Grenache and definitely some Mourvedre, which is kind of coming up as a different topic that we'll talk about sometime on the show. It's a really good topic. But I think that Syrah, when it's done in the cool climate conditions that we have in Sonoma County, and it's a good thing that you did bring that up because this month is Sonoma County month.
Oh, good timing.
Starts today. And I'm not kidding, even though it's April 1st. I'm not kidding, you guys. I'm real. No, it's a really good
doozies going around today
to really celebrate these wines of Sonoma County, and I think this is going to be a fun one. I was glad to bring on the Lassiter, but there's so many good ones. You brought on a great one there with the Dutton Estate, and we're proud of where I grew up here. I mean, this is where I was born and raised. I mean, I'm not a replant. I was here, but I feel like the wine industry grew up around me thanks to Warren Dutton and the San Giacomos and the Lassiters and these things that they did just to plant these grapes back in 1999 and 2000 when most of that was planted for them by Folcaturi, who's another legend. But I think there's a lot to celebrate here, and I love that wine pick. Sarah, you're right on the mark. Boom.
Oh, thank you. When I know a good one, I know a good one. But yeah, this one is near and dear. So happy that we discovered it, and that we've gotten to know the Duttons as well. Because of it. I mean, when somebody comes back, banging through your door, you're not even open yet. We're like, open up! We need some Syrah right now. Trust me, I'm sure that's still in their head. Like, who are these crazy people? But there's so much amazingness. And then speaking of Dutton Estate, what I didn't know was that they have a beautiful little vacation rental. Get it kind of straight there, that you can book and stay right there in the vineyards. And so you can book it at DuttonEstate.com. You can also book your tours and tastings at CellarPass.com. So makes that pretty easy. Definitely a great way to spend a wine country weekend and enjoying it. And if it's Sonoma County weekend, I am getting some echo.
Sonoma County month, not just weekend.
Month. Sonoma County month. So the whole April is Sonoma County month. So definitely get out and explore. I really like Sonoma County because there's such a vast diversity of regions and town to town. It's definitely not a place you want to try to do like downtown Sonoma and then get out up to Dry Creek area all in one day, because there's so much to explore in each little area. So much bigger than Napa Valley.
It's one. Napa Valley is 1/3 of the size of Sonoma County, and I think that and you've got a lot more racetracks here to ride on than you do in Napa Valley. Silverado and 29 are the two main things here. Here, you got to kind of explain how to get places. It's kind of like that,
and it's the old school explaining too.
Richard, like in Italy, where which way do we get there? How do we get there? Okay.
When you get to the tree, lean far to the left. Then when you turn right, but the back roads, everything along the Russian River, that's my happy place.
West Side Road is one of my favorite roads in Sonoma County. I love the part of 29 that kind of keeps going through Alexander Valley and goes all the way up to Cloverdale and eventually goes. Actually, that's probably my favorite road in
I love driving that road.
29 going all the way through Calistoga and going the Knights Valley route. That is so pretty. And then you keep going all the way there through Cloverdale, and then you go to Anderson Valley up in Mendocino County and get to the coast that route. And it's almost like a direct route. But that maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that in May, because that's Anderson Valley Pinot
Yes,
Month. So
it is. And
that.
we've got some pretty exciting stuff coming up about Anderson Valley, also all about that. So we will definitely share more. But speaking of like best roads to drive, that is one of my favorites. And it has some beautiful just dips and turns, and you just get that rhythm as you're going, and you've got the vineyards and the trees. And just outside of Calistoga is where like Bennett Lane Vineyards is. You pass that. And just as you start to kind of curve up and you're getting in some of those, sweepy turns,
Love that.
Is off to the side was one of my favorite little personal little sceneries was a pig farm, and they have black pigs. And I cannot remember for the life of me the name of these particular pigs, but later I would come to find they're serious business pigs, like prized black hogs that fetch a pretty penny. And I love them. And every time we drive by it, you just see them just covered in mud and, being pigs. That's what they do. And then later on, I was like, wow, those are like some pricey pigs over there. But I love it. And it just makes me happy when I drive by them. It's just like, they're just having the best time. And it's just so cool. And because they're black pigs, you actually don't necessarily see them. So for a long time, I just thought it was a big mud bog. I had no idea that there were pigs over there. But eventually I was like, they're out there. How cool is that? So, but yeah, there's so many great roads. I love going to visit a winery as an excuse to go drive some of these back roads. I've done it in Virginia, and everywhere. And there's just something magical about the backcountry roads that'll take you through the vineyards and the farms, and just seeing what there is to see, and not getting caught up in trying to go to every single winery. Like pick one or two and just enjoy the journey in and of itself, because there's so much more to see than being at the winery estate.
I agree 100%. Really this past week, I really did about 3 max for each area that I was in Oregon. And I just really enjoyed it so much more than being rushed. And I think that's a really important thing for people to do. There's so much more to see in these great wine growing regions of California and Oregon and Washington. Just take advantage of that. And, my good friend Vashti and Steve just wrote in from they're from Las Vegas, but they come here all the time. They love coming to wine country.
Yeah, Vashti's
I can't wait till they come back to visit.
They're amazing. And I see Vashti joined us tonight, chiming in. So thank you all. With that, keep it shiny side up, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful night. We thank you. Thank Owen and Richard for joining us. Thank you so much. I love your wine picks and your stories, and I can't wait to hear more. Richard's actually a neighbor here up on the island, so we're going to have to do that cut the cheese night up here for sure. You've got some friends that will appreciate it. Thank you, Chris, for making the trek down quickly to join us tonight.
Next time you're down in St. Helena, give me a call and I'll risk my life on Trinity Road and come and have a coffee with you. Or
okay, we'll be there tomorrow about 5 o'clock.
Okay.
So now you have it. There you have it. And that's no joke. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, viewers at home. We are off next week, but we will be back on the 15th with Acumen. They've got some special wine. They're doing their first rosé, so you've got to join us for that. And then on the 29th, we have Doe Bay Wine Company bringing us some incredible wines. So you definitely want to check that out. Go to CellarPass.com/TV to check out the upcoming episodes and buy your wine. We want you to sip along with us. So have a great night, everybody. And happy Holy Week. Here it is, Easter this weekend. So cheers, everyone.
Happy Easter. Good
Cheers.
night.
Happy Easter. Cheers.